Hey everybody, C.NOTE here, and welcome to Dopamine, the show that is all about mental health empowerment using personality typology. And this series of videos that we've been doing is all about Personality Development 101. It's about sort of teaching the basic core understandings and values of what the Myers-Briggs system is and how you can start to use it in your own personal growth and to help other people in your life. Because that's basically what empowerment is all about. So this series of videos is going to be all about these sort of basic explanations, sort of a beginner's course of what Myers-Briggs is. And then we have the full version of the course, which is also the same name. This is all the free stuff. The paid course is going to go into more advice and details and how you can start to look for that in the world, talking about careers, parenting, relationships, and how you can kind of use this. But then we're also going to be doing Cognitive Functions 101, which is really like the secret sauce behind everything, and then doing a passive profiling course, which is all about how you can really, what to take into consideration when you're sort of profiling someone from a distance, whether that is celebrities, interviews, TV shows, the people in your life, before you learn how to do professional profiling. But how can you do this and like take the right considerations in mind when you're doing it? So if there are things you're interested in, go check that out below in terms of the comments. Let me know in the comments if that's something you're interested in. I've done a few videos today. I'm already worn out. So today we're going to talk about how you show up to the world. And that means the J or the P, that is judger or perceiver. Now don't get confused by the word judger. Judger does not mean judgmental. Judgmental is more of a sort of colloquial term that people use to reference someone who is being sort of mean with their judgments. And judger does not mean judgmental. So, earlier in the past few videos, we mentioned your learning style and your decision-making style. Your learning style is your perceiving style. It's how you perceive the world. Your decision-making style is your judging style. It is how you put things out into the world. So, how you show up to the world means that if you're a J, you're a judger, that means you bring your decision-making to the world. That means you show up prepared. You've done the work ahead of time. You know what to expect, and you've planned for what to expect. And perceiver is the opposite. Perceiver is that you show up ready to learn. You show up to the world and you're more free-form. How that sort of translates to people is that judgers can kind of be a little bit more prepared, maybe a little bit more stiff in their posture, a little bit more calculated in their movements, and probably physically not moving everything in fluid motion as much. Like they're not going to be as likely to make a ridiculous mess of themselves like I am. Sometimes they can. Again, the judger perceiver stuff is not a single box. It's about sort of like a sliding scale. So much as the judging preference is how you prefer to show up to the world. So if you have the opportunity to prepare, you would much rather prepare and show up ready, well rested, well thought out. You know what you're going to do. You know what things are going to look like. You are regimented. You most likely keep some sort of a planner, stuff like that. The perceiver side is showing up to the world a little bit more ready to learn, sometimes poking at the world a little bit, sort of testing things, seeing how people react to things, seeing how the world reacts to things, seeing how existence reacts to things. So me, I'm a perceiver. So as you've noticed, I'm a little bit more fluid when I get a little weird and crazy, and I try to bring that sensibility to the work that I do. So I'm doing a lot of explaining, I'm bringing a lot of my decision making because I'm in my introverted space. But for the most part, when I'm trying to be connective with people, I try to bring a little bit of my fluid, weird, improv-y nature to the situation. When I go out to parties and stuff, it's more beneficial for me to not know what to expect, maybe a little bit of preparedness, but I'm not as likely to be completely filled out and regimented. So for example, if a judger and a perceiver need to do a presentation, for me as a perceiver, I'm probably going to do bullet points, or I'm going to have something that's a little bit more free form and sort of rely on all of the information that I've gathered by myself, and then be able to sort of free form play with it and adapt to changes. So if something goes wrong or something goes a little bit unexpected, I can more likely adapt to it because I've done a lot of the preparation work internally at home to encapsulate all of the information that I might need. So I can kind of collect and grab things as I need it to share in my presentation. I'm not as concerned about the perception, how someone's going to see me or judge me. I'm actually trying to learn from the experience. So a judger may be more regimented and prepared. Again, it's not super rigid in this sense, but more bullet points. There maybe have gone over their presentation and maybe physically practiced their presentation. I'll go over in my head, but I know it's not going to be an exact translation. Whereas a judger might have more of an exact translation of how that's going to look in the presentation. I hope that makes sense. So while judger and perceiver is not one of those things that is sort of publicly known, when you start to learn about Myers-Briggs, that there are some stereotypes around judging and perceiving that are somewhat true, but maybe a little bit off. So what I mean is that there's the perception that judgers are more tidy and put together, and perceivers are a hot mess and they're disgusting. Where, for me as an INTP, like my room is my place, my house, my apartment is probably going to be messier by judger standards, but I generally keep it clean. The less that I have to do to keep it clean, the more that I can spend time thinking and researching and working on things. So keeping a sense of order and organization is important, but it's not about managing the outside world. Like if someone came over, I'd clean up a little bit, but I'm not going to be, so focused on specific presentation. I can flow with things. Whereas, a judger, depending on the situation, may be more likely to clean up and have everything a little bit more pristine so that they don't have to worry about explaining why something's dirty or whatever, right? So the idea, and another way to think about it, is that judgers show up to the world prepared so that they can be more freeform in their mind. And perceivers show up to the world freeform so that they can prepare in their mind. So that's basically the dichotomy there. It's the preparation internally versus preparation externally. So you're preparing for the world to be in the outside world, to prepare for what's about to happen. And I prepare for basically everything internally as much as I can. And then when I go out, I'm prepared for basically anything. Not prepared, but I can adapt because I'm kind of learning about as many things as I can in my own internal world. I hope that makes sense. So I want to solidify that as an easier way to express that is that, being more relaxed internally for judgers is important so that when they do plan and prepare in the outside world, sometimes with other people, they will have a lot of their ideas and thoughts worked out. And then perceivers will figure things out with other people a lot of the time in the outside world. So that means brainstorming and showing up not ready and being able to take that information and then go into their cubby and do all the work themselves. So I like to work by myself. I do all these videos by myself. I edit by myself. I do all of the heavy lifting by myself. But when I need ideas, I will go to Molly or I talk to other people and we kind of brainstorm back and forth. That's what I mean by that. Whereas judgers more likely will brainstorm with maybe one other person, not as likely, or just by themselves and figure out the ideas on their own, if that makes sense. So that's basically the idea, is that judgers show up to the world prepared, perceivers show up to the world ready to learn. So it's learning style versus your decision-making style. They want to show up to make decisions or with decisions made. Or I should say, to make decisions. And perceivers will show up having already made decisions in their internal world while simultaneously collecting new information. And then judgers internally will be doing things themselves. Does that make sense? I know there's a lot of words there, so if you're not really sure, that's okay. So the idea, learning style, perceivers, outside world. Judgers, decision-making, outside world. So if you're a J, you're a little bit more organized and put together, generally speaking. Perceiver, organized, internally, but showing up a little bit more freeform. That doesn't mean that judgers are always going to be like dressed well. It doesn't mean perceivers will never be dressed well. It just means perception doesn't matter as much. They're perceiving the world, not being perceived by the world. Whereas judgers feel like they're being perceived by the world, therefore they're being prepared to display to the world. That's another way to look at it as well. So, for me, like, I could probably clean up back here. I could probably add something to make it look a little better. I did put a light back there. Like, sure, that's fun. I've got my shirt on. I put my hat on because like my hair is a little bit of a hot mess. But, I'm not worried about how this looks. Like, it's fine. It's fine. That's probably another way to look at it, is like perceivers. It's fine. It'll be okay. Perceivers are a little bit more about being. Judgers are a little bit more about doing. So judgers are going to be a little bit more goal-oriented, and perceivers are going to be more about vision. So perceivers are going to be about, like, what is life going to look like? Because what life looks like now is important. How do I feel now? How am I being now? Like, just being a person is important for perceivers. Doing things as a person is important for judgers. So setting goals and doing whatever it takes to get to that goal is important for judgers. And for us, as perceivers, the vision changes. So we can cast a vision. We kind of have a general idea of what life looks like. But if things in the moment need to change, or we're gathering new information about what life looks like, the vision adapts to what we adapt to. So that's basically how that works. So I hope that makes sense as an explanation. As it gets darker, the lights back here get brighter, so that's fun. So that basically explains sort of the judger-perceiver dichotomy and how that all works. And in the same way with introvert, extrovert, intuition, sensing, thinking, and feeling, there's a bit of a sliding scale here. It's not necessarily about being so full force on one side or the other. Sometimes, perceivers have to show up and wear a suit and tie and be prepared, right? Or prepare a presentation and be a little bit more, maybe your job expects more judger qualities of you, and you have to kind of adapt a little bit. Same thing with judgers. If you have to be more perceiver-ish and just kind of show up and have fun, like everyone's dancing and you're just like, I wasn't prepared for this dance. Like, that's, you got to kind of like be able to go with things sometimes, right? So prepare, plan for perceivers. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more open and free form for judgers. That's sort of a healthy perception of the other side. Just every once in a while, just keep that into consideration. That's all. Nothing complex. If your natural tendency is to be a judger, that's the way you're going to show up. That's the way you're going to naturally be. Same thing for perceiver. That's the way you're going to be. And for all of us, the world is going to be forcing us in different boxes. Different cultures have different preferences as well. So, America is a little bit more of a judger culture. So they're going to be pushes towards judger behaviors. I just had a conversation with a friend we typed her as an ENTP through a formal profiling session, and which on dopamine.life, there's information on formal profiling sessions if that's something you want. And we had a conversation about how her as a perceiver, she's been very much trying to do judger things. And there's this sort of prevalent boss lady kind of thing going on, which is a very FJ, especially INFJs have this very boss lady perspective going on these days, which is great. It's an amazing movement of women who are building businesses, but there is this perception of like, you need specific tools, you need a specific path, always talking about reaching your goals and, that sort of stuff. And perceivers are like, goals are hard. This really hurts. And I think the conversation we had with her was all about sort of letting go a little bit of like having to feel like you need to do it the way everyone else is doing it, to sort of honor your own internal decision-making process. And, that sort of shift is like, as we were talking about it, she was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. That feels so much better. And, it's the thing that's going to give you more energy and that's going to naturally propel you. If you feel like you're sludging through the water and it's not really like, it's not clicking, there's probably something that's off, which is why doing a personality profiling session with a professional like me is important. If you go down either in the comments or on dopamine.life, there's links to book your own profiling session to do it with a trained pro for an hour or two and be able to do that as a way to identify your type for sure. You could keep going through this personality development stuff and read descriptions and try to figure it out for yourself. That's totally cool. But to know and feel certain, getting a profiling session done is the best way to do that. Absolutely, for sure. So this has been all about how you show up to the world. I want you to go to dopamine.life, check out our articles, our podcast episodes, and our programs that we have on there as well. And we have a merch store for cool stuff if you want to go check that out. And then the last segment we're going to do next is going to be all about how we can start using this as a tool, kind of leading into the paid stuff around parenting, relationships, careers, all of these things, and how we can start to adapt to what each dichotomy really needs to be in different situations, and how you can start to listen to yourself or see if other people are not honoring who they are, and you can kind of help them out a little bit or guide them in my direction, get them a profiling session. It's a great gift for someone, and be able to start putting someone on the right path and really start listening to themselves and understanding for themselves what normal is, getting a sense of that control of what it is, what that calibration point is for you as a person. So that's it for this section. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about using typology as a tool to kind of wrap this thing up. So thanks for being here so far. As usual, leave comments if you have questions, thoughts, nothing's off limits, feedback. Let me know what you think. I just always want to make this better. I want to help the type community. I want to help everyday people who are trying to learn more about this. I want to help you in your personal development journey, not just to diagnose, but to help you grow as a person and live the best life that you can, whether you're a person who needs to be or a person who needs to do things, setting goals, or, resting into just like being more freeform and that being okay. That's what this is all about. So let's move on to the next section about using typology as a tool.